This video wasn't planned, but I need to convince you to read my all-time favorite book, right? So let's talk about it. Hello lovely book dragons, and welcome back to another video, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Joanna and I read primarily fantasy. I also like to dibble dabble a little bit into the science fiction and historical fiction genres, but I read mainly fantasy. And today I'm going to be trying to convince you to pick up my all-time favorite book, and that is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. So I wasn't planning on filming this video. I was just sitting here and I had just touched this book to talk about it in my March TBR, and I decided to film a why you should read. So this is not scripted, this is not going to be very coherent, I know already, but let's do this. The Final Empire is the first book in the Mistborn trilogy, in era 1 of the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. If you want to know more about the Cosmere in general, I highly recommend that you join the Cosmere Unbounded read-along project where we read all the books of Sanderson. There's gonna be so many videos explaining all the things. I have a whole video with my lovely friend Sophia over at Sophia's Thoughts about what is the Cosmere. I will leave these videos in the cards, but also in the description of this video. We are gonna be buddy reading all the books. We're starting with the Final Empire, and it's kind of like also why you should join us in Cosmere Unbounded, I guess. I guess this is also why you should join us to read all of these books, but specifically why you should read The Final Empire. So like I said, The Final Empire is the first book in the Mistborn trilogy. At the beginning of this book, we follow our main character, Vin, and she is an orphan. So in this world, it is not frowned upon for the nobles to sleep with their slaves, which are called the Ska, but it is frowned upon if you don't do anything about it. So when Vin's father actually slept with her mother, he should have had her killed and executed, because you don't want any children coming from that bond that happened from that, you know. So Vin never met her father, of course. She knows who he is, but she has never spent any time with him. He doesn't even know probably that she exists, because, you know, that would be scandalous. And her mother is gone, so Vin and her brother Rin grew up on the street. And in this world, the tagline of this book is, what if the Dark Lord won? So in this book, we live in a world where the Dark Lord won thousands of years ago, and he's been ruling the world with his iron fists, iron grip English, and it's a very dark and bleak world. Like, the first sentence of this book is, ash fell from the sky. The landscape is covered in ash because of the ash mounds that are erupting constantly. It's a very dark and gray world where you keep on inhaling this ash, and everything is quite bleak. Yeah, Vin lives on the streets, and she actually, at the beginning of this book, was abandoned by her brother, and she is part of a thieving crew. And the book starts with her thieving crew trying to, like, do a new scheme, and the book goes from there. In this book, we also follow Kelsier, who is also a Ska, and he is trying to make a plan to overthrow the Lord Ruler. And Vin and Kelsier's paths are going to cross, and we follow the story from there. So the magic system in this world is what's super, super inventive and creative. It is called allomancy, and you actually consume metals, and each metal, there's 8 of them at the beginning of this book at least. There's 8 metals that you can consume, and they give you specific powers. Not everyone has these powers, of course. It's already very rare to have any ability with the magic system. So, and if you can burn one metal and use it to give you powers, you're called a misting. But if you can burn more than one, you can burn them all, and you're called a mistborn. So you're either misting or mistborn if you have any magic at all in this world. And it's super interesting to see, because it's not like a soft magic system where you can just use your powers and do whatever you want. It's very much a hard magic system, and that is what Brandon Sanderson is known for. And I find that in this book, it is so easy to understand the magic system. He explains it to you. You get info dumps where he explains it, but it is so well done, because you're training with Vin as she discovers her powers, and she gets to know about the magic of this world. And it is just so, so interesting and so, so good. Okay, so the reason number 1 why you should read this book is because of the magic system. If you like hard magic systems, you will love this. It is so logical. I actually have thought about giving this book to some people who tell me I don't read fantasy because I don't like that magic can solve anything. Well, here it can't, because if you don't have any metals on you, if you haven't consumed any metals, then you cannot use your powers, and that's that. So I actually really love the magic system in this, and it creates for like really fun visuals when you're reading. And so the magic system is the first point why you should read this if you like hard magic systems. Reason number 2 why you should read this, the characters. The characters in the Mistborn series are in all of Brandon Sanderson's books, but specifically in the Mistborn series, the characters are so wonderful. I just love them. Vin is one of my all-time favorite characters, like of all time. I love her so much. Just starting to listen to this again and hearing about her story, about her past, about the feelings that she has, about how her life has made it that she doesn't trust anybody, and she's like just so cautious when going into every situation. And then seeing her evolve, I just love the characters so much. I love Vin, I love Kelsier, I love Sazed, I love even the crew members that you would be like, oh, who, these crew members, they're just like little side characters who don't have personality. No, they do. Like, you just love everybody. I love these books so much for the characters. Like, I love the world, I love the characters, I love everything, but the characters are so good, so you should read it for that. You should read it for that. Well, you should also read it because this is a super great entry point into the Cosmere. Why? Why is it? I would say you should start with the Mistborn series. A lot of people will say, start with the first book he ever wrote, Elantris, because it's his worst book. Not according to everybody, but according to a lot of people, Elantris is Brandon Sanderson's worst book, which means it's still a phenomenal book, but just for Sanderson, maybe a little bit less, but us Sanderson fans are a little bit biased. But a lot of people say to start there because it's a standalone. And a lot of people say, okay, but don't start with Elantris as a standalone. Start with Warbreaker as a standalone because it is a fun, crazy adventure, super fun magic system world and book, and just do that. And I agree with those people. Warbreaker is a great starting point, but I recommend starting here because it's a trilogy. Yes, it is a trilogy. They're big books. This one is, I think, the shortest. It's 600 something pages. But this first book can be read as a standalone. The first time I read this, the first 2 times I read this book, I didn't continue on. And it's not that I didn't want to continue on, that he didn't get me intrigued enough to continue on, but I was just still very new to fantasy, and I wasn't in the mood to get into another 600-page book and another 700-page book. So I actually just read this book as a standalone because the first book really stands on its own. At the end of the book, he blows the world wide open, and of course there's a lot of things that will happen in the sequels. Once you read the second book, you have to read the third book. Those don't read as standalones anymore. But this one, it's a heist story, pretty much. This whole book is a heist story, and if you get to the end of this book and you're like, you know what, this was fun, but I really don't want to read any more of this magic system, I don't like the characters enough to continue on, it's okay. You still get a pretty concluded story in this book, and you don't have to read any Sanderson ever again if you don't want to. I hope you do, because I love Sanderson. But if you don't want to, you get a phenomenal book with phenomenal characters, with a super cool magic system, and it does stand on its own. But if you don't want to stop here and you're like, wow, I love this, I wonder where it's going to continue, then you can read its sequels, you can finish the trilogy, and then you can get into Elantris, you can get into Warbreaker, you can get into Era 2 of Mistborn. There's going to be 4 eras. The 4th era is going to be in space. It's gonna be so incredible. And then you can get into the Stormlight Archive. And then you can be a Sanderson fan, like me. And then be crazy. And like all the people that are Sanderson fans. We are intense. Yes, we are intense. But these books are so great. These books are so great. And I just want you to read it because it's such a fun, incredibly fun story. And yes, the book is big. And yes, it's a hard magic system. But Brandon Sanderson's writing style is so accessible. It is so easy. Some people say he doesn't even have a writing style. He just goes and explains things and the story unfolds. And it is kind of true. He doesn't have a super lyrical, flowery, magic style, writing style. I told you I would be incoherent. But it's not like you're reading and like, this is poetic, this is poetry. No, you just read and it's easy to read and you can fly through these books because of the writing style, because of how fun it is. You just do yourself a favor, pick it up. It's such a great book. It is my all-time favorite book. I'm gonna be rereading it. I'm currently rereading it as I'm filming this, and it's my 4th time reading this. I can foresee this being a book that I reread over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Even just this standalone book if I don't want to read the sequels because they're a little bit heartbreaking. And read The Final Empire if you want an incredible world, if you want an incredible magic system with incredible characters, easy to read, fun story. Just do yourself a favor and read The Final Empire. And that is my video for today. See you in the next one. Bye, guys.